general category of Agile PM, whatever PM to you. Only a handful of people. Wow, interesting. Okay, well, I'll get started. Thank you for voting for my talk. I'm really humbled. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming and taking the time to be here. My session is called 7 Keys to Being a Great Agile PM. My name is Joe Moore. I work for a company called Pivotal Labs. We're an Agile web consulting company out of San Francisco, although we have offices around the country and even in Singapore. Most of you are familiar with Agile, so I'd like to skip over this one, but for those of you who aren't familiar with Agile software development, I'd like to probably back up and say, I am an engineer, I'm a software engineer, I've been working in Agile for a long time, and so this talk is sort of from the perspective of software development projects, and if that does not interest you, then hopefully you'll still get something out of it, but if you don't want to know anything about software development projects, then you probably still have time to go to another session. If you don't want to be a part of this one, I won't take it personally, I promise. But anyway, so for those of you who are not familiar with Agile, it's software development methodology that revolves around iterative and incremental software development and focuses on self-organizing and customizing. But it sounds like 95% of you know this. All right, so I'm going to talk about these 7 keys. This is probably the most words that will be on one slide. Vision, ownership, independence, decisiveness, availability, verification, and flexibility. I do have a bunch of slides, but I'm going to try to go through them quickly, and hopefully we'll be able to have a good discussion, because this is mine. These are my keys based on my experience, but everybody here has other experiences, so I'm excited to hear what everybody has to say. And if anybody sounds like they'd be a great presenter, then I may drag you up here and hand you one of these mics that has nothing attached to it, and you can share in the discussion as well here. All right, so about me. I've been doing, like I said, my name is Joe Moore. I've been doing Agile software development as an engineer and a coach for 11 years. I've done all sizes of projects, from one-person greenfield startups, people trying to change the world with no money, to working in large enterprises, worked at some large social networks and large search engine companies, and also places like insurance companies. So I've seen the gamut, and I've seen really lean, mean development machines as far as companies, and then also large bureaucratic messes. I've kind of seen it all. So why me? Well, kind of what I just said. I've kind of seen a lot of stuff from the engineering perspective. The other thing I'm really excited about, I'd like to thank Andrew here in front for asking, saying, hey, I might want to come to this event, because I think a lot of times when somebody's up here, like at a product and project management session, there's probably somebody up here who's a product manager, or talking to product managers, and you're kind of talking to the same people. Or I'm an engineer and I'm talking to a room full of engineers. So I thought this was a really great opportunity to say, hey, I've got a room full of PMs, I thought. Hopefully, I've decided you're all PMs. Congratulations on your career. So my goal is to have a room full of PMs, and then have somebody who's actually from the engineering side up here saying, hey, Agile PMs, here's how we can work really great together. So I think a lot of times PMs who are new to Agile don't really know what to do with these engineers anymore, because their roles have sort of changed and processes have changed. So I'm like I said, I'm in the trenches as a developer. I'm here to give you some practical, everyday advice. Really, I'm here to help you, help us, help you. I exude altruism and generosity. I'm really a great person, or really I'm kind of a selfish guy, because I really like to code and coach. I love working with PMs and people on the business side. I love getting into the depths of the domain knowledge and helping to shepherd people through Agile if they're new to it. But, and like I said, I love that. But if I'm not coding like 80% of the time, then, well, for one, I might not be getting my full value, because I'm primarily a developer. And two, I just love coding. I'm not going to be quiet behind me. these 7 keys. So this is all my perspective. This is the first time I'm giving this talk, so I'm interested in some feedback. And I'm sure that a lot of people here have different perspectives, so don't hesitate at any time to chime in. Raise your hand or don't raise your hand. And I don't have to just be a talking head up. All right, so here we go. Vision over documents. So what does vision mean? What we, like I said, lots of this stuff is from a developer point of view. Lots of times developers sort of lack high-level product vision. We kind of look to this enthusiastic figurehead to help sort of guide us through. I was talking to somebody else, I'm not sure if he's in the room, about this very topic just an hour ago. We tend to be very myopic in what we're looking at, what we're working on. We're trying to get this button to work on this page, and this feature, and this gadget, and all that kind of stuff. And that high-level sort of visionary of like, why are we even doing this? Like, I can make widgets on any website or whatever. Why are we doing this one? What's the whole purpose? This enthusiastic figurehead can kind of give us the themes and principles and guidelines of why we're even here doing this stuff. And I say vision over documents because we're all pretty smart. We can read. If your vision is coming out of a document, we're like, why are we even doing this? What's the whole theme of this stuff? I'm like, I don't know. Let's turn to page 82. Yeah, we can do that. But we really are looking for somebody to sort of represent that vision and talk to it. And a lot of these topics, they flow into each other. Like the previous ones, kind of like as you hit the top ones, they build and build and build and kind of get to the next one. So ownership over management. We want this project to be your baby. We want to know if somebody really cares deeply about delivering this software. Like not just us, like yeah, we love delivering software, but like I said, engineers, we're pretty geeky. Or kind of anything to be a fun problem. We really are looking for somebody to really take ownership of this project, be responsible for making sure it's delivered, be that central point of contact. We love having that central point of contact, like having to go and talk to 20 different people to get an answer is no fun for us. I say over management because we want you to be the owner and not just like, we don't want to, like I say, we don't want this to just be another thing on your list. Like, use one more project on your list of many projects and have a daily kind of check-in and like, whew, done with that one, on to the next one. We want to know that you care deeply about this project. All right, independence over bureaucracy. I hate this one. We, as Agile engineers, are super demanding on our PMs. Always, we're not just going to take a document and then come back a month later and say, oh, well, here's what we thought we should do. We really value that tight communication loop. And so we want to be able to come to you, and we want to know that this isn't about like your ability to make a decision, which I'll get to in a second. This is like your empowerment to make a decision. If we come to you and say, hey, we really don't know what to do in this situation, what do you think? We don't want you to have to always go and ask somebody else, because these telephone games are really inefficient. And I'm willing to bet that if you're a PM, you probably have your favorite engineer. All PMs I've ever known have their favorite engineer. Yeah, I can kind of go, you know that thing? Kind of wonder, you like stuff like that? How hard would that be? What are you doing over lunch? So, you have your favorite engineer. Engineers, we have our favorite knowledge person. And if that's not you, then we're probably just going to go around to that person and be like, hey, I know we're supposed to talk to Bob because Bob's running the project, but I really need an answer to this now. He's just going to ask you anyway, so can you call me out? And that's only going to cause problems because you're going around people, and we want you to be empowered to make those decisions. Have that knowledge. Like I said, feel free to pipe up anytime. Kind of go through to the end, and then you can ask questions. All right. Decisiveness over delegation. So this is related to the previous one. This isn't the empowerment to make a decision. This is actually making decisions. And like I said, like a lot of these things, you think you'd like to hear, but as an engineer, like, I don't know, just do whatever you guys want. I hate this one. Like, 5 different options, I realized. You know, something in exploring this feature that we want for this product, we ferreted out this weird corner case. We don't know what to do. Hey, what do you think? I don't know. Whoever you guys want. We don't want that. We want to know that you care enough about the project and you have that vision, and like I said, we all build on each other. You have that vision and that ownership and that independence to be able to say, okay, well, I've got these 3 choices, and because I kind of know why we're all doing this, it's clearly this one. Clearly this one in the middle. Okay, great, awesome.
So one of the things is, as an engineer, you have to present the options clearly, so that the project, so it's okay for the project manager to say, I don't understand your options, can you go back and
Yeah.
show them to me clearly?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's like somebody who's normally in my role, which is sort of a technical coach-ish role, I guess is the terminology Agile uses. And I kind of take that upon myself, the people in my role, to be able to come to the PMs and say, or the product owners and say, all right, we have these 5 options. I'm not going to talk geek to you. I'm not going to tell you about the implementing of the model, of the view, of the flow, of the framework, of the library. And I'm going to break it down into terms you can understand. Quick decisions keep things moving, and kind of going to Dennis's kind of tangenting off of what Dennis talked about. This is really important when the decision is to stop, or to do something else, or to delay a decision. We have 5 options, and that being you as a PM and the owner, we realize, oh wow, this really changes my assumptions about what's going on here. We need that quick decision about like, you know what, let's do this later. Let's not do this right now. Let's punt. We'll talk about it tomorrow, and we'll work on something else today. I need to do some more research. What is it? Sure. So the question was, what's the difference between a product owner and a project manager? So I will admit that I'll usually say PM, and I let people sort of make their own sentence of what that means. My very little secret. But sometimes it means a project manager. I'm managing the project. Sometimes it means I'm a product manager. I'm managing the product line like this. I'm kind of a product owner, or that means I'm the business expert. So this is from my perspective. I talked about this a little bit more at the end, but I'll talk about it now. For me, the best PMs, again, that use word, are the ones that are managing the project. They're managing the product. They are the business. They are business experts in this area. They are kind of all those things. So I've had really good experiences with people who take responsibility for all of those roles. And I know that might not be a great option for a lot of people. You may be larger organizations. The definition of what a product or a project might be much different than what I tend to work on. You know, a product line might actually be, in my view, 10 products. Because it's Microsoft. Microsoft is a million different products. So I don't know if I answered your question very directly. I don't know that I have a good answer. Maybe people who work at larger organizations may have a better answer for why, like the buckets you put those 2 people in. But like I said, I like to mix those people together and have people sort of represent all of them. Pete?
So I've worked with a couple clients, and maybe I can help you out. Delta and T-Mobile. So Delta and T-Mobile, they have what they call technical delivery managers, and those are your product managers. So they are managing the product. So if you look at the product managers over the product owners. The product owners are the ones that know intimately about the details of the product line, the life cycle of the product. Managers are at the enterprise level. They're the ones that understand the enterprise backlog, priorities. They're the ones that are on the hook at the end of the day with the deployment of the entire product. The product owners work with the teams, or work directly with the teams, they have guidance, they have direction. And so there's a little bit of nuance there, but with Delta and T-Mobile, 2 clients I work with, that's how they kind of break out. So the product manager owns the enterprise backlog, the product owner owns the product line.
We're actually moving to a similar setup at SoberPop. So we have 3 senior product managers that are kind of working at the strategic level and how their piece of the puzzle fits into it. And it seems to be working very effectively for us.
That's the back.
Yeah, one of the keys is making sure you know where the person is facing. So if you're looking at your ownership level, they're facing the executives and they're facing the customer, and they're trying to take this broad view of how this lives forever. Where in our particular case, the project managers, right, from a project perspective, narrow focus, taking the vision of the ownership and making sure that within a set period of time, the product moves from point A to point B. And so they're downward facing because they've been given their directions to go from, the ownership, which wants in 6 months the product to move, to saying, I am the delivery of that movement. And therefore I am focused on the people who are actually going to do the work. And so that's how we're structured.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think this is what the thing that's really great about this is we're hearing about, like, the answer to your question is that every group has a different answer to the question. Right. All right, so you just said that your organization is very flat. You don't have all these peers. So that's actually what I'm more familiar with, is those more flat organizations where, especially in smaller companies, where the PM, as I'm describing them, or the PM or the PO, really encompasses many different roles. You're talking C-level people, but they're also responsible for making sure the engineering team delivers. And that's really what I'm more familiar with. And what my experience has shown is that, my experience, as companies grow, they need more of those levels, or they at least need more of those product owners. At a company I was recently at, this is an interesting, so I'll make a line of tangent here. One of the patterns I've seen again and again, especially in the startup world, is like a startup, goes from 10 people to 20 to 30 to 40 and then kind of up into like hundreds, is originally like the visionary CEO, Biz Stone or Twitter, or Larry and Sergey or something at Google. They had it all in their head. But then after a while, there's a different set of problems that kind of come along, and they really kind of resist giving up that responsibility, being able to keep it all in their head, and to realize that they have a new set of problems. They might need to bring in product experts, business experts in certain areas. So, for example, at Twitter, after a while, they kind of passed that early adopter curve, and they stopped getting all these new people signed up. How do you get your mom to sign up? All the geeks already signed up. How do you get your mom to sign up? And so it really took them a while to realize, we need to go out and we need to find somebody who's an expert at this onboarding, quote unquote, onboarding concept of like, how do you attract more users? How do you make their first experiences really great? And like the people who founded Twitter, they weren't thinking about that kind of stuff. They were thinking about geeks. You needed to bring in other people. So I think that over time you start, they brought in a chief of mobile development who's an expert in the mobile world, how to get people to sign up on mobile. So I think that you start growing, you start introducing more people at that sort of middle layer. But I'm a big fan of like not introducing somebody who then is, until you have to, then manages them. Like, okay, it's the chief of onboarding or new user experience. And then they have to have a manager and a business analyst and something. If you can wrap those up, it's way more efficient. Maybe that works great at a company that's 1,000 people. Maybe doesn't work so great at a company that's 100,000 people.
So in your experience, when you have companies who have role large sort of programs, so you're responsible for high level roadmap, also the sort of day-to-day sort of feature function goes in. Do you think it's a successful combination? Because really those two different skill sets is what I see. But in your experience, have you seen it be successful sort of combination, or are there some pitfalls that you have to look out for? Is that sort of the way we're sort of structured?
Right. So the question was, is it a good thing to have these roles, PM, PO, VAs, all kind of wrapped up into one person, talking to the executives and also managing the engineering team? And I think it is a real challenge. I think it takes a special person to be able to do that. I hesitate to say yes, everybody should do that. But the most successful projects I've been on have been structured like that. But I will caveat, like most of the projects I've worked on have been probably small based on what we talked about, 100, 200, person company as well, startups. And a lot of those sort of visionary types, who are brought in and they have that passion for that area and they're experts in that area and they probably got coached from some other successful company in that area. Are they different skill sets? Maybe, but I would hope they'd be complementary because you don't want too much. I would hope that you wouldn't have too much conflict of interest there. There's like that conflict of, there's the conflict and then there's like, healthy competition. That stress between sort of making your engineers happy and making the executive happy is like, it has to reach a certain balance. You don't want that to get too out of balance. So I think it can work, but you have to be very selective in the people you put into those management roles. And if you do decide to break them up into multiple roles, like having those people work really closely together is really important because, again, the telephone game and I don't know, I got to go ask this other guy, I have to ask another guy. That's a real killer to any organization, whether or not they're doing quote unquote agile or not. Yes.
My struggle here is, I want my product managers to talk customers, and where, you and I had this conversation with Agile. I think that if you don't have a strong business analyst, it becomes more about the product manager being in front of the team, being a beck and call the delivery team. I think there's a role for the product manager to play that's appropriate with the delivery team, but I think you have to have a strong VA because at the end of the day, I want the product manager in front of the customer, getting information from the customer, bringing those departments back. And early on with Agile, I felt that the product manager was spending way too much time on tactical issues, less time doing product portfolio management, thinking 1, 2, 3 years out. So, I mean, we can agree to disagree. I don't think it's one person. It doesn't work well.
Right. I think that you might be so where he's saying over here is that it might not work long term to have those goals wrapped up in one person because we need somebody who can't look 2 years out. In my experience, the people who look kind of 2 or 3 years out are often not the people who are working directly with the engineering teams. But then again, at the sort of smaller companies that I work for, those are usually like the CEOs of the people. I think there's a different discussion to be had regarding whether how Agile works with that kind of long-term vision. I mean, what does it mean to look 3 years out on a day-to-day basis? Don't follow a meeting schedule. And we certainly don't want to wait until tomorrow for the 1:30 after lunch sync up or something like that to get an answer. Like that time builds up on itself. It's like, okay, well, I didn't get an answer yesterday, so I'll get it today, but I had 3 questions, and now I can only get 2 of them answered, and blah, 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 that kind of snowballs. And I will say, I'm totally terrible about this. I have no shame. If you're at a company where you have tons and tons and tons of meetings, and basically your calendar is just red. Every hour is booked. But if it's generally accepted that your meetings are kind of critical, and everybody uses that time to catch up on email and stuff, and kind of halfway paying attention, keep your team chat room up, or keep that email ready. And I will, if I know you're in one of these useless meetings, I have no shame. I will ask you, on chat, hey, you busy? No, I'm in a meeting. Hey, can you answer that? What are we supposed to do about one thing? Where was the location of it, whatever? When is so-and-so available? 2:30. Okay, awesome, thanks. Turn that useless time into useful time. For me, because I have solved that. So verification over assumptions. This one is sort of the opposite of what the availability thing. It's like not your availability, it's the fact that we, the engineers, are very available. I know some tenets of Agile, I may be getting this wrong because it's been a long time since I've worked with sort of super structured, by the book Agile. I think some people really discourage PMs coming over and engaging and interrupting the engineers. I encourage it. I think it's great. Come over, ask us questions. Because then we don't have to undo a bunch of your assumptions, especially if we're planning the next iteration of work. Maybe next week we're going to start a new feature, and you're busting out the user stories for it, and all the features that we're supposed to be working on, and if you're building in a lot of assumptions into that, when you could just come over and talk to us, then we don't have to unroll all those assumptions. So just tell us what you want. And come over and give us any time, and we'll tell you if it's going to be easy or hard, or cheap or expensive. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been in meetings where I look at what we're going to be working on for the next few weeks, and see a lot of stuff that's not on there. Like, why? It's like 8 p.m. Why? I thought you really wanted to do this thing. It's really important. Like, well, I thought about it. It seemed like it'd be real fun. Maybe it's super easy. That's the thing with engineering is you never really know. Maybe there's a free package out there. It does everything you want. Awesome. Maybe that simple thing you see that Google does, super hard because Google has 20 people working on it. So don't make too many assumptions. Engage us, ask us questions, come over, interrupt us. I personally love that. I think it's in the long run, it's fun. All right, flexibility over stubbornness. It's kind of a weird one. It's super detailed. It really comes down to when you're building user stories. I don't think a lot of time is spent talking about this. User stories, in my opinion, have two customers. Yes, there's business value that we're delivering to you, the PM, to the product, but it also has to be something that's executable by the engineers. These things have to happen. You can't just ask for whatever you want, and if it's impossible for us to do, then the story is only satisfied half the point, so to speak. So flexibility is talking about, hey, you're asking for something. There's this package out there that is commonly used in other software projects, and it does 75% of what you want. And I want you to think about, okay, well, it'll take 2 weeks to do it, everything that you want, or 2 days to get 75%, and maybe have to bend a little bit in what you want from a product point of view. And I'm not saying that the engineers be bullies or anything like that, but I'm saying have that flexible state of mind and be able to kind of retrospect back on yourself and say, is that good enough? Maybe it's good enough. Maybe that other 25% was kind of fluff things there. I can't tell you how many times I've been in iteration planning meeting where it's come out that something is like, hey, PM, this thing you want, this fancy photo uploading thing, how important is that to you? Oh, absolutely critical. You absolutely need it. Has to have tagging and the rotation and the flipping of the colors and the blah, blah, blah. Super hard. It's like, well, you can get most of it, the last 25% is going to take 2 weeks. I never liked that anyway. It wasn't even my idea. Dump that other stuff, do the one that's only going to take you half the time. Happens all the time. So having that flexible, stick to your guns if it's something that you feel is really, really, really important. But be flexible as well, because engineers have lots of different solutions. Yes?
Yeah, I'm just curious. You said you work more so in flatter organizations.
Yes.
When you're talking about defining and prioritizing the resource inventory up front on how you're going to plan the iterations, do you have somewhat like a technical architect role because developers sometimes have their area of expertise, UI, back office, database logic, whatever. Is there some technical person that's been in your environment that helps to prioritize those use cases and help with that iteration plan?
So the question is, do you involve software, like the architect level people in the iteration planning because there might be sort of architecture level, infrastructure level choices? I would say on demand. Like sometimes, so organizations that I've worked at, often they do have architect roles, people who are it's their job to sort of govern the entire software infrastructure and making sure you're not doing crazy stuff. But I found that the really successful ones trust their developers a lot. A lot of the agile tenets tend to break down a lot of those traditional buckets of people. You might, in my experience, you still do have our database experts at really large places, but instead of having a whole field of them, you might only have a few, because developers are given a lot more empowerment over doing database stuff, for example. So I think that if they do have those architect roles, I think they can be involved in those meetings, but more from an informative point of view, maybe kind of watch out and make sure people aren't making crazy decisions. But a lot of infrastructure decisions aren't made in those meetings anyway. And I think that usually software developers are informed about whether or not you're asking for a particular kind of feature, and the engineers in the back of the head are thinking, ooh, that's going to mean this entire chunk of infrastructure that we don't even have. Usually we won't schedule those right away. Usually my experience will say, let's hold off on this whole chunk. We didn't realize it was going to be as detailed as it was with a chunk of infrastructure we don't even have. We need to think about it. Now maybe that means going to architect level people if they're around. Maybe that means just a bunch of people, engineers gathering around a whiteboard and doing some Google searches to kind of figure out what the state of the art
Actually,
is.
what I've seen is not so much the infrastructure, but more the software design architect, where I've seen it in previous situations where you're relying a lot on the project manager to plan the project and say, we're going to do iteration one and that's going to be, whatever feature A, feature B. The project manager doesn't understand and doesn't conceive of the solution and know how to exercise the solution throughout the, the entire front end and the different
Okay.
layers.
Okay. So I think what we might be talking about is that maybe the project manager wants to needs more technical expertise. That's what you talk about. Maybe this is what you're talking about. Like I was saying, on this first slide, these stories are a combination of like what we can deliver, what the product managers want, and what the team can actually deliver. And sometimes the answer is, do you want this big thing? We can't deliver it. At least not yet. We need to talk about it. So that's where you have those conversations and you decide, hey, let's put this aside. And that's where the flexibility comes in too. It's like, well, no, we absolutely have to have this now. Like, okay, well, you kind of fall back on some of the other agile tenets of, well, are we delivering the most value? Delivering you the most value you can get as soon as possible? Are we building this whole back-end system that the users will never see? Because for some reason, even though perhaps we should be delivering more customer-facing value, so that we can get some feedback on whether or not we're even building the right product, or whether or not things really need to change. So a lot of those decisions kind of get mixed into what you're talking about. I've definitely been part of decisions where we have super inflexible product managers who happen to have an area of expertise, domain expertise. Recently worked on something where our project manager happened to have a lot of accounting, finance expertise. And this part of the site was an e-commerce site. And they didn't want to focus on the e-commerce part, the part where you actually bought stuff. How easy is it for people to buy stuff? What they wanted was the ledger. I want to see the ledger now. Like, well, you want to see the ledger. You're the only person who's going to see the ledger. Yes, we have to get that right. There's all kinds of, it has to be right. Can't lose those pennies or anything. But how about if we focus on actually delivering what the users are going to be playing with, to decide whether or not we're actually building the right features here. So a lot of that, I was kind of rambling, but a lot of those decisions kind of like wrap into what you were talking about. How much infrastructure do you do up front? How much do you get the infrastructure people involved? Yes.
How much flexibility do you expect the PMs to build into the guidance that they do for deadlines and how much functionality needs to be delivered in this work? Are you expecting, or how much flexibility do you expect?
All right, so the question is, how much flexibility do we expect the PMs to build into their deadlines and things like that? So Agile really pushes really hard for sort of the emergent velocity and everything. That's why we estimate. That's why we create things like user stories and we estimate them. I think this will take this many points, or sometimes numbers, or this many hours, or this many days, and that way the rule is always that PMs, you can ask for whatever you want. The developers get to estimate it based on their best knowledge of how much engineering effort this is going to be, and then PMs you can schedule. Put them based on our history of we usually get about usually we get 10 of these things done at a certain size for 2 weeks. Then you can use that to kind of extrapolate out how much you can get done. But the thing we really reject is, we acknowledge as being sort of a falsehood is this idea that you can have your cake and eat it too. You can ask for whatever you want and it'll get done when you want to too. So that flexibility, you have to have that flexibility, and if you're doing Agile, you probably adopted it. That you can't have 50 of these things in a month. And you lock yourself down and say, grit your teeth and say, and that's the way it's going to be. Like, okay, well, we can try, but we're probably going to have to. So having things like emergent velocity, you can say like, okay, over history it shows we get 10 of these things done, 15 of these things done, whatever. Use that information to use that information to project out how much work you're going to be able to accomplish based on your best knowledge. And then the conversation can happen about prioritization. Well, looks like we're not going to hit that deadline. What's important? We could make everybody work 16 hours a day and probably build broken software. Or we can face reality and choose the things that are really going to fit or scale up the team. I think we're about, I think we're getting out of time. This is good because that was pretty much my last thing, except for that's kind of awkward. If PM is a middleman who doesn't have any product vision and can't make any decisions and all those other things, what do you do? Well, you're not doomed. The reality is you're probably going to have a harder time being an Agile PM with your engineers. But hopefully you at least are maybe aware of areas where your PMs, maybe it's you, maybe it's people you work with, maybe it's not, but where they need to improve on their process. And at least maybe you've taken this and you've thought about it and make your own assumptions. I don't know, I had one real quick thing about, my ideal PM as a super high character, like, I'd love to have this guy. And I think on that time, I'll take one question.
Yeah, just sorry, one quick question. I think it's in relation to what she was saying. Maybe you already answered this. Do you think the Scrum Master should be providing architectural oversight? That's something that we always struggle with. Is Scrum Master more of a project manager, or is Scrum Master someone whose goal is to provide architectural oversight and in some way break that sacred Scrum tenet in terms of saying, hey, this isn't the design, you should do this?
So I think the question was a super loaded and complex question, which was, what's the role of the Scrum Master? Wow, we definitely don't have enough time for that one. But the specific question was, do they provide architecture expertise? I think the question is, I think the answer is maybe. I think it depends on what their history is. I'm not really a by the book kind of guy. If they are a former expert in a particular area, then I think that they should be able to provide that knowledge. If they don't know anything about a particular area, then they probably are not the best person to be given everything. I think it really depends on how you implement Agile, whether or not you're doing it by the book and